Guys, hey family. Hello, hello, hello. I'm gonna give you guys a few moments to get on. Let Facebook notify you that I'm on so that I can have a conversation today. So we'll just wait a few minutes. Hi guys. My name is Nicole Bozeman. I am your mindset transformational coach. I'm founder and creator of Crystals, Diamonds, and Pearls. And I am here today because I wanted to talk to you about something really, really near and dear to my heart. It's something that I found myself as I was learning to grow in my grief and learn to release the hindrances of my mind, that I found myself plugged into a power source that is just getting me started on an emotional roller coaster ride that I think many of you all will be able to relate to. And I want to talk about that in 1 second. But right now, I want to make sure that all of you guys are seated with your seatbelt securely fastened as we take this crazy roller coaster ride of madness with our weather. Like, hello, what's happening right now? What's taking place? But do you all feel the emotional imbalance because of our weather? I mean, guys, do you see what's happening here? We just had 2, 3 days of some really good weather, and now all of a sudden we're back to putting on our coats and gloves. Gonna turn the heat on at the end of April. How many of you all are feeling this feeling of riding this emotional roller coaster ride when it comes to our weather system? Like, you don't know if one day you can be summer you, or then you have to be winter you, or maybe fall you, then turn into summer you, or you start off in the winter, and then by the time you're done by the end of the day, you could be summer you. You don't have a clue. It's so imbalanced. Well, welcome. Welcome to riding the emotional roller coaster rides of craziness that we are all experiencing. And as your mindset transformational coach, I want to show you how even our weather can take us on these crazy rides, right? That will make us feel so imbalanced in our emotions and even in our mindset. Because we're sitting there thinking we can do one thing only to turn out and find out we can't. And then on top of all that, so many are trying to plan travel arrangements. We have proms coming up, graduations, all this yummy things happening. And here we are standing in this space of emotional craziness. And we don't even know how to dress for it because of the weather. If you're feeling anything like I'm feeling right now, will you please just raise your hand in the comments, please? Somebody let me know I'm not losing my mind at this moment, right? Oh my God, it's insane, and it's interesting, and it's nerve-wracking all at the same time, but it's taking us on these emotional experiences and mental thought processes because we don't know 1 minute if we're waking up to warmth over waking up to cold. And so and so with that imbalance, we have to learn how to find our balance, right? So no matter how the weather is outside, it cannot dictate how you're feeling when you're feeling balanced, when you find that balance in your emotional and mental space and really feel connected to yourself and in your bodies. Right? There's nothing else like it. And I wanted to come today and I wanted to talk to you again about releasing the hindrance of your mind. But more specifically, I want to talk about why the empty nesters fear letting go, or the number one reason why empty nesters fear letting go. Why is it that we all of our lives, the 4 decades prior, 4 decades past, or 5 decades, how many decades you have been here with us. But if it's more than 3, yeah, that part. So I'm 5 decades in right now. Many of us are in that space. I'm going to walk into my 6th decade soon. And during this time right now, as I had experienced my transformation, my mindset transformation, my healing journey that I share with you guys all the time. And I love sharing my story. I love being vulnerable before you all and just share with you how I healed and how I found balance again in my emotional and mental state, how I was able to disconnect from some crazy emotional power grids, right? That just kept me so off balance and just totally out of whack. And now finding myself in a beautiful space where I'm aligned, I'm walking in my purpose, and I'm ready to share this with you. So, again, today we're going to talk about the number one reason why the empty nesters fear letting go. And I don't know about you, but I am becoming an empty nester. My final child, my baby, my only daughter, my baby girl will be graduating in, she said, 26 days. And I'm excited for her. I'm excited for the new phase in her life. But at the same time, as I've been dealing with these major power grids that keep us in this space of grief, right? We talk about growing in your grief. And I'll share with you about these 3 major power grids we find ourselves connected to throughout our lives. And I was saying that we need to be able to identify which one we're in and which one is most active that's causing these roller coaster rides of experiences, like this weather roller coaster ride we're on right now, of madness, to keep going, right? So the one that I did identify was the one of being an empty nester. That's coming to a space where we realize that our need to be needed is getting ready to no longer be satisfied. I found myself in this space where I was wondering, well, will she need me now? Or what would it look like? And I know many of us would say, your children will always need you. And that's true to a certain degree. However, it is the type of desire and the way we grow in our relationship that I want to allow to expand and grow in our grief, right? And so the number one reason why most empty nesters fear letting go is because we find ourselves in this space of what I call mama power overload, or daddy power overload, or parental power overload. That's what we'll call it. We're in this space of parental power overload. And at the same time, we are in a space where we're now discovering that we are now them. We are now looked at and perceived as being them. Okay, well now who is them, Nicole? Well, them are those individuals in our lives, our elders, our older aunties and uncles and grandparents, and even our parents, right? Even some of our siblings, if you have a wide gap in between each other. But remember when we were younger, we would look at our older aunties and our cool cousins and our aunts, and we'd be like, oh my God, we see them, they were so much older and they were wiser, and you would go out with them and you would see your older aunties and uncles hanging out and chilling, and that was them. Yeah, that was them. That was them. We young, we grooving, right? We're talking about the number one reason why empty nesters fear letting go, right? And so in that space where we were young and we were looking at our older family members, and we were saying they and them, and now today we are now finding ourselves being called them by the next generation behind us. So now we are the aunties and the uncles and the older generation that they are looking at, and they are saying, yeah, them. And now we have to deal with this concept of middle age and midlife and the golden years and menopause and all of these nuances that our bodies are going through, all these internal hormonal transformations that we have no control over, dealing with our thought processes and our emotions, yes? And so while you're on that roller coaster ride, then you're dealing with the fact that you're looking at your children and they're growing up and they don't need us as much. And we're tending to find ways to stay connected to them, keep them as our children, our babies. But what I found out, what I had to discover, what I learned with my sons, is that it was not that I wanted them to keep needing me, because I didn't. I wanted them to need themselves. This mama power overload that I started to experience was because, we had so much control over our children. We lead them and we guide them and we do all those things that are right to do as parents. But then it gets to a place when it's time for them to go out and be on their own, that we find ourselves still trying to find our space in being that mama or that parent, and having a difficult time separating and breaking away or letting go of our child and giving them access to adulthood on their terms and not ours. I'm going to sip a little water on that one. We get overloaded with parental power, and this parental power overload, because for so long they heard us and they listened to us and we guided them. Even if we butted heads with them, there was still this power or authority that we held over them. And now we don't have it like that no more. It's waning, that power and authority. It doesn't look the same. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't respond the same way anymore. And so as the parents, in this parental overload that we find ourselves in when we're in this midlife, when we're coming up, becoming empty nesters, and we're in this parental power overload, and we don't know where to go to be able to plug into, to feel needed again, or to continue to feel needed in a parental space. Because oftentimes we don't know where to go. And that becomes the question that many of us are afraid to address or ask is, now what do we do? Now what? What is my next? If we want our children, we want to equip our children to be able to stand on their own and to make their own decisions and choices, and good, bad, or indifferent. Now we're at that space where they're not getting ready to do that, and we freak out. We start freaking out. I'm at a space right now where my daughter is learning to drive, and she's going for her driver's license. And so for me, that now means another level of independence. Which also means another level of challenges. And so now it's finding my space in needing to be needed but not really wanting to be needed. How many of you feel like you're in that space? Feel like you need to be needed, but you really don't want to be needed. But you're in this parental power overload and you don't know how, or you're struggling to disconnect so that you can begin to power down from that space and that place where all those parental tabs have been open all those years, those 3 decades, 4 decades, however many decades, 2, 3 decades, because we're letting go of our children and we're letting them become adults and we're settling in to becoming them and being the them generation. That generation that's redefining our size of our heels, ladies. Yes? The type of perfume we wear now. Do we really want that heavy scent? Find ourselves maybe wanting to have, again, going through menopause. So one minute we're clothes on, next minute we're clothes off. Sweater on, sweater off. Shawl on, shawl off. Or are men who are going through trying to figure out where they fit as providers. Because their main source of energy that kept them going are now gone or leaving out. So who becomes the source of providing and feeling like they're that provider now? Where does that power source come from? Are men wondering and figuring out how to deal with the ego manly side of them that may not be as strong anymore, that may be just a little slower now, not as quick to move and flow, but still powerful in wisdom and passion and drive. So how do we release the hindrances of our minds and release that number one reason why, as empty nesters, we fear letting go? Is that parental power overload? How do we begin to disconnect from that? How do we begin to identify, where do you go from here? Who or what do you turn to or turn your attention to now? When we fear letting go because we fear they won't come back, but guess what? They're not gone. They're just growing up and moving on. And that's what we want. So what I've learned in my own personal journey of being an empty nester and learning to let go of that fear of letting them go and letting her go and letting her grow up and go off to college and have those experiences, watching my sons become parents now and take care of their households, and we don't always have family gatherings anymore because they're doing their own thing now, but we still connected in love and communication and conversation and interactions. And those moments become more precious now. They become more enjoyable. They become less strenuous. It's not a demand. It's a delight. Yes? How many of you find yourself resonating with anything I've said? How many of you find yourselves in that space right now? How do you begin to release the hindrances of your mind and grow in your grief when your fear is letting go because you're afraid of becoming that empty nester? Now, some people will say, I ain't afraid, listen, they can go. Bye, Felicia. And that's cool. I'm glad that you are in that space. And I hope that you now can find what your passion is. And if you're in that lane and you're ready to just kick it off and find your passion and find what your new is, I am so excited for you. I have something amazing for you guys. Yeah. And for those who are in that space like I am, I'm embracing this phase in my life with curiosity and not fear. With a desire to want to know more. Yeah. And not wanting to hold on to what I knew. Because all things are becoming new, and that includes my mindset as well. And being able to release the hindrances of our minds. And I want you to be able to do that too. So listen, do me a favor. Are you done with being an empty nester? Is that one of the power grids you're plugged up to? Are you connected to that power grid? If you are, just say yes in the comments below. There's no shame in that. A lot of us. And what's happening is that oftentimes we'll take the mistakes, or we'll start thinking about what we should have, could have, would have, things we should have done, things you wish you would have done. And we'll see our children doing things like, oh my God, why, where did that come from? Why did that happen? But there is no thing that we as parents, and I'm going to say this because I really do feel this in my heart. I think that as parents, we never grow up and say that when you ask yourself, when we were asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Nobody said, I want to be a bad parent. Nobody ever said, when I grow up, I just want to be a mean mom. And when I grow up, I want to be a non-existing father. Nobody ever said those things. It's not the desire. And so as we begin to deal in this phase of being an empty nester and releasing the hindrances of our minds when it comes to being in that place and plugged up in that power grid of emotions, realizing that they're calling us them. We're that them generation now. We're the ones that's, again, moving a little bit slower, and appetites are funny and desires are different. And so now the question becomes, where do I go from here? I want to show you how you can begin to find loyalty and discipline. You'll find faith and trust in you. That's the next step. It's important to find those things, but you'll only find them as you begin to grow in that grief and learning how to release those hindrances of the mind. And no, it's not easy. Listen. Yeah, no. But what I'm discovering and what I've discovered and what I love to share, what I love being able to share with you all, is that it's beautiful when you do. It's more powerful being able to let go and watch them and stand on the side with your popcorn, be like, ooh, foul on the play. You might want to get that, I'm just saying. And allow them to have their own roller coaster rides of experiences. Yes. Because we're already present and secure on our own. We don't want to put our children on our roller coaster rides. And at the present moment, we don't need to be on theirs. We got enough to deal with, okay? So I just want to come on. I want to encourage you that, that parental power overload is real. It does. It's real. It can feel suffocating. It can feel very overwhelming because we don't know how to release it. We don't know where to take it. We don't know what to do with it. It's a power that we have to really learn how to disconnect from and literally power ourselves all the way down so that we can begin to upgrade our beliefs and our habits and some of our behaviors, thought processes. We begin to change our 5 sensory experiences. and being okay with them being okay. Because they really are. You did a great job. You gave them all the tools and resources that you had at your disposal. Now it's their turn to take the tools and resources you gave them, they create their own, and then they create a new generation. But for us empty nesters, we're going to release the hindrances of our mind. And we're going to continue to grow in our grief because we're going to learn how to let go and discover, where do we go from here? Are you ready to do that? Listen, I am. I have been on this journey for about 5 years now, and I'm realizing I'm able to lift my hands in about 26 more days and say, thank you, God. As at the same time, I learn or I allow a transformation in relationship. And it's always going to be mother-daughter. But there's a different type of relationship that's beginning to form. And it's a little intimidating and it's a little frightful because my need to be needed is starting to be starved. It's not being satisfied anymore. That need to feel needed it's not being filled or fulfilled like it used to be. And so now I have to look for new sources, the power sources, to fill that need. Actually, I've already found it. I'll share that with you later. But it's in what I love to do. It's in my passion. It's in my work. It's what lights me up. It's what keeps me wanting to share. Is knowing that you can absolutely grow in your grief. You can absolutely find that balance in those emotions and in that mental space when you learn to let them go. So listen, guys, I want to thank you so much for joining me. I hope this helped you. I hope that something that I said resonated with you. I hope that this gives you a moment to just breathe and realize that you are not alone, that it is okay, that there is a way of escape. You're just going to know how to grow in our grief. And I'm going to share more about that as well. But listen, until then, have a beautiful rest of your day. I don't know what's going on with Mother Nature. Listen, she is on her own roller coaster ride. All I'm going to tell everybody is remain seated with your seatbelt securely fastened until the weather comes to a complete and total stop. Until we meet again. Until the next time, guys, have a beautiful rest of your day and a fabulous week. Love you. Talk with you soon. Bye, guys.